Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is just going to be a video covering my thoughts on where we are in the mouse market and the peripheral market for M&K players right now. I think there is this big demarcation right now with budget mice and what we refer to in the $30, $40, $50 to $70 range, and the more premium flagship mice like stuff from Razer, from Logitech, that nearest closer to the $100 to $150 mark. There are companies that have varying mice throughout that price range, including Pulsar now, dropping the price on a lot of their mice to even $70. And of course, you can get that 4K dongle for a little bit of a additional price. But overall, there always seems to be something wrong with the budget side. I've got the LTC GM022 right here, and this actually does feel like a pretty unique shape. It's got a kind of generic shape in terms of the overall hand feel, but then as you get down to mouse 1 and mouse 2, it kind of takes this abrupt change, and you get this low click height over mouse 1 and mouse 2, and really everything feels pretty solid here. It's actually a pretty interesting mouse. You can find it on Amazon for $30. The build quality on the LTC is actually fairly solid. It's got a 3395. The weight really doesn't feel all that bad, but the weight balancing is a little bit off. And then as you get over to mouse 1 and mouse 2, there's just quite a bit of flex on the plastic over mouse 2 and even on mouse 1. The scroll wheel has basically steps that are almost unnoticeable. The thing just flies. So there always seems to be like one issue or another on these budget mice where it just never feels very premium. And I would probably not recommend anybody get something like the GM022 from LTC just because you're looking at $40 or $30 on sale. And again, there's just something that doesn't feel very overwhelmingly great about the general mouse. In terms of the Ajaz AJ159, we get to the build and the shape and the size, and it basically is an Ninjutsu Sora V2 copy or pretty damn close to it. When you start analyzing the build, it really doesn't feel all that bad. Again, structurally sound. It even looks like it could come from the same factory as the LTC GM022 with same dongle placement, same looking skates, just different size, and even the magnetized charging for the dock that both of these have and come with, that looks fairly similar, and the placement of the buttons. I would not be surprised if these came out of the same factory. The AJ159, of course, being a budget mouse from Ajaz. But when you start analyzing the build, the scroll wheel feels much better than the LTC GM022. But I have an issue with mouse 1 and mouse 2 with just an immense amount of flex. You can basically barely apply any pressure to this mouse, and it just feels like you're getting a lot of creaking, a lot of flex over mouse 1 and mouse 2 going side to side, and it's very noticeable in game and actually very distracting. If it wasn't for that issue, the performance of the mouse is not that bad. The overall shape is not that bad. But when you compare it to what it's copying, the Ninjutsu Sora V2, it's just not something that I would pick over the Sora because the Sora is lighter, the clicks feel better, and overall performance is just not anything that would make me say, get the AJ159 over the Ninjutsu Sora. So now when we get to companies' flagship mice, I've got a lot of mice here on the table, and I do want to save time for the OGM Pro Wireless V2 from Wyzel, because Wyzel is another brand who is, I think, making strides in the right direction in terms of these mice that are coming from that region of the world that just feel better in general. But when we talk about flagship mice, we're talking about the G Pro Superlight 2. We're talking about some of the premium versions of the mice from Pulsar. We've got the Cherry Xtrfy flagships in the new mice that released. And when we are comparing some of these brands and Razer, Logitech to Cherry and Fantech, it's just unquestionably that there is a more premium feel in the Pulsar X2H the Logitech G Pro Superlight 2, and Razer's products than the Cherry mice and the Fantech Helios II. The Fantech Helios II Pro is supposed to be a upgraded version, a more premium version, or I guess a revised version of the Helios that's supposed to be a whole lot better. Here, I do think that the shape of the mouse is still fantastic. The performance here on 4K, I had no issues with other than some RF signal issues that I just don't feel on any of these other mice. My mouse cursor just at random intervals in game feeling like it's stuttering. Again, not issues I have on any of these other flagship mice. Mouse 1 and Mouse 2, I do think that they have made massive improvements here with minor side flex on Mouse 1 and Mouse 2. The scroll wheel feels good. But another issue here that's just unavoidable that I have to bring up is Mouse 3, which is when you're pushing the scroll wheel inward, is so lightly able to be pressed that I just think it's something that was overlooked in the build quality phase. For some reason, it is very easy to actuate Mouse 3. I found it to be actuating in-game at many different intervals in-game when I didn't want it to be actuating, and that did cause me some issues. Overall, I think they were trying to make a really nice coating here, and to me, it just begins to feel too marshmallowy. It begins to feel too swampy, too slimy, and it's not a coating that even remotely competes with something like what I see on the Wyzel OGM Pro Wireless V2 and on Razer's mice, or even something like the Beast X, the G Pro, or the Pulsar X2 HES. So, the Helios 2, good shape. Questionable about the performance here because of the RF signal issues I had, and the scroll wheel issue for me is a deal breaker. I wouldn't pick up the mouse again because of the actual accidental misclicks there on the Fantech Helios 2. And that could have just been something limited to my copy, but it's something that was happening to me so tremendously frequently in game, I would just not be able to use it. When we get to Cherry's Xtrfy mice, the flagship mice come in at around $140, and that does come with the 8K dongle. I thought the performance on these mice, and again, mine came in a box full of water damage, but sometimes the white version that I have here, the Ergo Cherry Xtrfy mouse, was having some signal issues. I think the dongle probably got damaged because my black copy works absolutely fine. I didn't have any RF signal issues whatsoever or any cutouts, stutters, etc. Both of these mice actually feel good. The shapes are refreshing. The shapes are new. And I do think a lot of people would probably like these. But again, the coating begins to feel just not premium like Razer's products or the G Pro Superlight 2, Pulsar, the WL mice. And it becomes something that just feels tremendously cheap, particularly at $140. I do like the shapes of these mice. I think the weight is right where it needs to be. I think, again, the performance is good. So if you wanted to try something new, I still think that you all could potentially check out the Cherry Xtrfy mice. It might be worth a try. But there's just something about the coating and the overall plasticky feel that just doesn't feel as premium as the other mice that are still remaining on the mouse pad. So we come to a time now where we have some off brands like WL mice that are pumping out these tremendously good mice with good internals, good performance, lightweight, and some people might absolutely hate holes, and that would just basically take these mice out of the equation. But I would have to say that WL mouse, the Beast X, both the medium and the large, are a mouse that makes it to my top 3 in terms of mice on the market right now. I've got a lot of new mice that came from Razer. I purchased these on my own. Razer does not send these to me. I've got the Viper V3 Pro, and I have the new Death Adder Hyperspeed. The Death Adder Hyperspeed is one of the most surprising releases of the year. The Death Adder Hyperspeed has become a mouse that is seeing the most playtime on my desk right now. I think the size and the shape are perfect to have enough of an ergonomic feel, enough of a palm grip on it to have a lot of control for an ergonomic mouse, but then a size that is good enough to whip it around and get a lot of engagement with your fingertips. So it's a very versatile, very good ergonomic mouse that feels so much better than all of those other mice that I just spoke about. So for me, it's very hard to recommend other things when you have something like the Death Adder Hyperspeed, the Beast X, the Viper V3. And I want to actually talk about that. The Viper V3 at $149 or $150 in comparison to the Cherry Xtrfy symmetrical mouse that is $140. I just don't know how I can recommend the Cherry mouse when the Viper feels that much more premium. To me, it's just more of a compelling purchase to get the Death Adder Hyperspeed or the Viper V3. Now, I get to Pulsar's mice, and I know a lot of people have struggled with build quality issues or sticky clicks, but the Pulsar X2H ES, as well as the ES series in general, feels exceptionally premium. Pulsar has a great coating on their mice. The weight and the weight balance, even though it is on the heavier side, coming in between 60 and 65 grams in their ES line, the metal scroll wheel looks absolutely stunning compared to most scroll wheels on the market. They are coming out with a lot of colors, a lot of collabs, and I think the variation is something that I'd like to see from a big mouse brand. I think Pulsar has paved their way to be able to be referred to as a big mouse brand. The X2H and the X2H Mini are some of my favorite shapes right now to use. The Shinobu looks absolutely stunning. It is held up perfectly. I have had no build quality concerns or issues, as well as my X2H ES Founders Edition in green looks absolutely stunning, plays absolutely fantastically. I think these are some of the best mice on the market and deserve a spot on what is now the most played spots on my desk. The Death Adder Hyperspeed, the X2H ES, one of the Beast X sizes. Right now, I'm probably still finding myself utilizing the large a little bit more. And then the G Pro Superlight 2. It is just a mouse that has received an immense amount of hate because, well, Logitech isn't really doing anything. It's hard to miss the fact that Logitech isn't doing anything on the market right now. And the G Pro Superlight 2 is just a shape that works so well in terms of consistency, but it's a very bland, a very boring shape. And a lot of people don't like those heavier clicks in the G Pro Superlight 2. But at the end of the day, the G Pro Superlight 2 performance just shines so much past a lot of those other mice that I have used on the budget end that it would be very hard for me to recommend a different mouse to a pro player with hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line to recommend something other than these four mice out of my entire mouse collection right now. Of course, you could interchange the Viper V3 with the Death Adder Hyperspeed, but really, these four mice just feel so much better than everything else on the table right now. Again, you could interchange the smaller version of the Beast X with the larger, the smaller version of the X2H with the X2H ES, or the Viper V3 with the Death Adder. Now, these are probably my top four mice right now that I find myself using all the time. You guys did see the little unboxing I had for the Ponage Stormbreaker. The Ponage Stormbreaker has now seen a ton of revisions and a lot of new changes that I think are absolutely fantastic. The BLG copy looks stunning. The skates out of the box are actually good, and it's one of the, well, it is the only mouse on the table that actually has a movable sensor system. And it's nice to see a little bit of innovation like that. The side buttons now are actually no longer stiff on my BLG copy. Mouse 1 and Mouse 2 feel really good, never get any switch grind. And the magnesium build here is exceptionally strong. I don't have any concerns or any issues whatsoever. It is a mouse that feels very good. My only qualm with it is the paint job is kind of makes it feel like a glossy mouse. I live in a very humid climate, so glossy mice just don't work for me. But if I could throw some grips on this and be happy with covering up the beautiful build, the Ponage Stormbreaker, now upgraded with 4K, feels like a really, really good mouse. But I find myself still gravitating to the Death Adder Hyperspeed. And then we've come to the OGM Pro Wireless V2. This was actually one of the most surprising mice that I've tried recently. I think Wyzall has done a tremendous job overall with the coating of this mouse. The weight of the mouse is down to 49 grams, and it is on the larger size for an ergonomic mouse in terms of its width. At 49 grams, with a 3950 sensor, it is a solid performing mouse. It comes with good skates out of the box, and overall the weight balance here is just tremendous. It feels amazing. But again, we start getting into the build quality. I can squeeze the mouse and actuate Mouse 4 and Mouse 5 with not a whole lot of pressure behind that squeeze. Not anything I've ever actuated in game, but if somebody really has a tight grip in game when they're hunkering down, let's say an attack shooter or something when they're spraying in Apex, I could maybe see you actuating Mouse 4 and Mouse 5, and that's kind of a concern. Now, that's not my biggest concern with the Wyzall. The clicks here on mouse 1 and mouse 2, you start getting to different areas of mouse 1 and mouse 2, and the click system here, when I get close to the top of mouse 1, when I'm clicking here, I cannot get any actuation of the switch. Likewise, when I am clicking on mouse 2, when I get to the entirety of this area here, I am getting no actuation of the switch. And it just feels as though that plastic is moving and I'm just not getting any anything from the switch at all. To me, that's just a very bad design. And I don't know if it's like that on every copy, but my hands are very large. My fingertips rest in the region of no actuation. And for that reason, in general, I think it's just a huge miss on the overall build structure of the mouse. If I had a copy, though, that did have a mouse 1 and mouse 2 that didn't have that issue, I don't think the side flex with actuation of mouse 4 and mouse 5 would bother me at all. I think what Weisel has done with the improvements in general from the last iteration to this iteration, this coating is phenomenal. Again, it feels like a smooth touch Death Adder or the Viper V3 in black. They've nailed that coating. It feels exceptional. And when I am hitting the switches in an area that I can actually get actuation, mouse 1 and mouse 2 just don't feel good. And then that just leaves me with, in my lineup, my flagship mice from some of the larger companies, WL Mouse, of course, being one of the newer ones. But it's hard for me to recommend anything other than some of Pulsar's top tiers in their lineup, the new Razer stuff like the Viper V3 and the Hyperspeed, offering some of the best mice on the market in terms of symmetrical as well as ergo, and the WL mice just feeling so good, and the G Pro Superlight that might bore people, and I get it, but it's still one of the best and one of the most consistent feeling mice on the market, and something that, if you're looking for the best performance, it certainly does not leave much to be desired. So right now, these are the top recommendations that I have. The other stuff, I think it's fun to try things, but again, right now, it's just hard for me to recommend a lot of other things separate and apart from what you guys see on the mousepad right now. So those are my thoughts, guys. If anybody has some recommendations for some of the budget mice, I would love to get a budget mouse that I can really say I would maybe pick this over some of the flagship stuff from some of these other companies like Razer, Logitech, WL Mouse, and Pulsar. If anybody has recommendations, I am happy to still continue to explore to try to knock off some of these things and point people to a more affordable yet still just as good in terms of feel and performance. I would love to be able to do that. But right now, this is where I am. So that's it for this one, guys. I hope it helped. If it did, please leave a sub to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next review. Peace.